Good evening, my name is Kacper Paradowski and you're watching Poland Daily News. A convention of the Law and Justice Party took place in Krakow today. The party's chairman, Jarosław Kaczyński, stated that within the next 20 years, Poland could be wealthier than Germany. According to him, the Civic platform has used the pedagogy of shame for Poles for years. Kaczyński also took part today in the convention in Nowy Sącz and is preparing for a speech in Tarnów in the evening. Today we can say with a great dose of conviction that the Polish economy is able to eventually catch up with the average income of the European Union in a relatively short time. I am speaking about countries such as Italy or Spain in terms of GDP per capita. And with time, we will be able to catch up with the rich countries of the European Union. Among the large European countries, the richest is Germany. This is our goal, and this goal has already been calculated, and not by us, but by the scientists from the Warsaw School of Economics, who for many years were quite skeptical about such plans. In 14 years, we are set to reach an average of the European Union. Let me remind you that today we are at 71%, which is almost a half an increase, but in fact it is much more, because the other countries will also keep developing. So we must catch up with them in their development. In 21 years, we will reach the level of Germany. We are to be clearly wealthier than today's Germany.
During their previous rule, the former finance ministers admitted during their testimonies that there were mistakes and even quite a few of them. Anyway, according to them, it didn't matter much because the criminals were smart enough to find loopholes in the law, to use advisors, and were always one step ahead of the office, one step ahead of the state. Under our rule, the ministers, supported by all special services, were 3 steps ahead of criminals. So let's talk about the effects now. They left behind debts, tears of the Polish people, and the VAT gap. We are leaving behind those things that are written on the wall behind me. 500 plus social benefit program, school bonus of 300 zloty, higher salaries, higher hourly rate, lower social insurance contributions. We can go on for a while, yet it has only been 4 years. Of course, both the chairman and our leaders emphasize at each convention that there is still a long way to go. But you have to admit that after the 80 years of helplessness we had experienced, we have done a lot in these next 4 years.
The remains of 22 soldiers of the anti-communist military underground who were murdered by the communist authorities in the Mokotów prison in the 1940s and 50s were reburied today at the Powązki Military Cemetery in Warsaw after having been found and identified between 2012 and 2017. The funeral ceremony began with a holy mass performed in the field cathedral of the Polish army. For many years, the soldiers have been recovering their identities, good names and titles of heroes. The determination of the victims' families made it possible to find their remains in the ground. Right after this holy mass held in the field cathedral of the Polish army, the 22 soldiers will be buried at the Powązki Cemetery in Warsaw. The indomitable soldiers, you've been waiting for a Christian funeral for over half a century. Your friends and families are wiping away their tears. Every person who finds the truth as a foundation is happy. Everyone thanks God for your lives and for your faithful fight for our homeland.
Na warszawskich Powązkach.
The President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, and the Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki sent letters to the families of the victims and the participants of the ceremony. The remains of 22 soldiers of the anti-communist military underground were found during wars carried out by the Institute of National Remembrance at the Powązki Cemetery. The researchers found the remains of 300 victims. 71 of them have been identified so far.
The chairman of the Civic Coalition, Grzegorz Schetyna, has demanded the immediate resignation of the new president of the Supreme Audit Office, Marian Banaś, during the party convention of the Civic Coalition in Jelenia Góra. This is a reaction to news reports by TVN, according to which in a tenement house owned by Banaś in Krakow, a hotel for hours was to operate, in which prostitutes would provide their services. Marian Banaś has denied these accusations and announced legal steps to be taken against the authors of the program.
Is
it normal that the former head of the National Tax Administration, the former Minister of Finance, the current head of the Supreme Audit Office has problems with the declaration of his financial interests, and that he is accused of nepotism and his declaration is being examined by the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau for the 4th year? Is it normal for this man to be promoted and responsible for such important things? No, This is not normal.
Tak jak nie jest normalne.
Normal for the fox to be the director of the hen house. This is our reality today. This is the story of a person who, being so involved in unclear, non-transparent interests, today becomes the head of the Supreme Audit Office. Those who appoint him, Mr. Kaczynski and Mr. Morawiecki, together with the whole government, together with the Minister of Interior and Administration, they all congratulate him. This is their man, playing such an important role, who is responsible for this pathology. However, before proving that he is not responsible for this pathology, he must resign from his post immediately.
Odpowiedzialny za tę patologię.
A protest march in the Spanish capital Madrid took place today against the plans of the Vox party to delegalize gay pride marches in the country. Protesters argue that the rise of support for the party endangers their rights. Many of the people present at the march say they are becoming increasingly fearful ahead of the upcoming parliamentary elections.
Around 600 people marched accompanied by the slogan "Pride against fascism, always ahead, our rights are non-negotiable." The city of Madrid is ruled by the People's Party with the backing of Ciudadanos and Vox. Protesters expressed their opposition to promises made by the Vox party earlier this year to put a stop to gay pride marches as well as the so-called diversity classes in school, which it views as nothing but propaganda.
I think what happens in Spain with parties like Vox is a reflection of a global situation that is happening both in Europe and the rest of the world. The rise of the far right in very specific economic and social conditions. In the end, what we have to do is just this, to go out into the street and not to go backwards, to defend what has been achieved, and this is the only way we, together with our vote, can protect the rights we have won.
Protesters pointed to the fact that not only does Vox have influence on the policies in Madrid, but also that they cooperate with the People's Party in Andalusia and are likely to gain similar influence on other regions after a future local election.
I believe that this is always necessary to go out into the street to claim some rights and not to take a step backwards in what we have already achieved. We are in a complex social and political context with pacts in town halls and regions where LGBT rights are a bargaining chip for certain investments. We want to go out into the streets to say loud and clear that our rights are non-negotiable.
The next Spanish parliamentary elections will take place on November 10th.
That is all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.